I believe America had gotten to the promised land about a decade ago, but they didn't know it themselves and they didn't recognize it. But I believe race relations had peaked and it was pretty much done with. Um, maybe there wasn't every single last remnant of the racist past flattened out, but they were pretty much there. A black president, two-term black president, should have been symbolic of this thing being over, and let's focus on some of the other problems in the world, of which there are many. But it seemed that people didn't see it as a watershed moment. They just recognized, yes, as a black president, and then went on pretending that race relations had never been worse in America. Um, it has basically taken the United States 50 years to completely destroy Martin Luther King's dream. His dream of a colorblind world where people are not judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. I believe this is still the way most sane people are. But America, especially in the universities, is regressing. And it's not only the universities now. This is spilling out into the mainstream, into corporations. And there are, mandates and there are quotas and there are all of this kind of stuff. Where if you have a board of, CEOs on a company, if there are 15 people in the room at a meeting and they're all white, that would be an absolute PR disaster. Now, it wouldn't have been a decade ago or certainly 2 decades ago. The idea of meritocracy is completely gone. I couldn't care less if I was working at a company and the board of directors were all black. I could not care less as long as they were the 15 best qualified people that applied for those positions. If they're all white, I don't care either. If they're all Chinese, I don't care. Meritocracy means you're good enough, you get the job. Now, it's every space in American life has to look like a scene from the UN. You have to have a black guy or a few black guys. You have to have women. You have to have a Native American, an Asian, a Mexican, a transgender person. It's much less about the merits that you bring to a given space, but much more your identity, your immutable characteristics that you bring. Your immutable characteristics, in my view, are completely irrelevant. And if you disagree with that, you're either a white supremacist or a far left wing progressive. Because they're the only groups of people that obsess over skin color. You could have 10 people in a room with 10 different skin hues, all from different parts of the world. And you could have 10 people that completely agree on everything. You could have a racially homogeneous room where all of the 10 people are black or all of the 10 people are white, and have 10 completely different opinions. As people are diverse in themselves. This diversity stuff, when they say diversity, what they mean is diversity of skin color, which is irrelevant to me. The diversity that actually matters is diversity of opinion. And diversity of opinion is not something that they are for. At all. At all. When you think about the diversity stuff, it really is racist to its core. Because if they say something like, we need to get a black person in here, it assumes that that black person thinks a certain way. If there are five white people on a board of directors, say, and if someone says we need a black person here, we need their input, that assumes that the black person thinks a certain way. It takes away their individuality and their autonomy and their free will. And it assumes that black people are not an incredibly diverse people within themselves. We say, oh, black people think a certain way. We need to get a black person in here to, for a contrary view. Well, bring a black person in. They might have the exact same opinions as the five white guys there. You bring an extra white guy in and he might have completely different opinions to the five white guys that are already there. Nobody thinks about this stuff, but it's racist to its core. Martin Luther King talked about getting to a colorblind world. A colorblind world meant that you don't see the color of somebody's skin. What he really meant was you don't judge by seeing the color of their skin. Sam Harris talks about this beautifully. He makes an analogy to hair color. We really don't care about hair color. There is no space in American life or in Western life generally that we say, well, we need to get a few more redheads onto the board of directors. There are not enough blondes in the, you would look at someone like they lost their mind if they started to speak that way. That is where we have to get with skin color. That if somebody says, well, we need a Chinese guy in here, or we need a black guy, or a Jewish guy. Why? We need a human being here that can do the job. And I don't care if they're an Eskimo or a Zulu or John Wayne reincarnated. It makes absolutely no difference. You're good enough, you get there. The idea of meritocracy is completely gone. You have this dire religion, diversity, inclusion, equity. It's destroying the West. You cannot get equity. What is wrong with these people? You cannot get equity. If there's any parent with two children will tell you that. If you can't get equity in your own home between your two children, how are you going to get it in society between groups of people? There has never been equity because people are different. Men and women are different. The races are different. One is not better than the other, but some races are better at some things than other. Asians are better than white people at maths. Black people are better than white people at basketball. That's what a meritocracy is. Why are blacks way overrepresented in the NBA and the NFL actually? Because they're better at it. Why are whites way overrepresented in swimming? Because they're better than black people at swimming. But there are people, disingenuous people out there that would look at that discrepancy in swimming, for example, and say, yeah, whites are overrepresented, there's no black people there. This is institutional racism. But when somebody points to the NBA or the NFL, they put their fingers in their ears and they don't see it. So, I don't know. This stuff really, really has to die. I'm sure it will pass at some stage, but it's going to do some terrible damage before it does. And I just worry that the kids coming up now, like I have a child and his generation, what they're going to believe about the world and how they're being taught to think about things, critically think. I really worry. It's all an appeal to emotion and, a consequentialist analysis of everything. And, tear the system down. You got to break some eggs to make this omelette, And they have no clue about the world and what they're doing. And these are essentially our leaders of tomorrow. So, Yeah, it's very worrying.